Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, good day, depending on when you all are watching this live stream. Thank you so much for joining me. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and get straight into it. We are talking about the cost of readiness or credentials or confusing credentials and readiness, as I'm confusing these two words together.
It's easily confused.
So hopefully by the end though of today, we are not confused with credentials versus readiness, but that's our focus point. And you may see a familiar or unfamiliar face that's joining me here today. I am joined here with Rebecca Edelman. I practiced your last name, and here we go. So
It's a tough one. It's okay. No problem. Edelman.
Edelman.
Yeah.
And Rebecca will be kind of shedding some light, not even kind of, but definitely shedding some light on credentials against readiness. But I want to allow Rebecca to introduce herself and to share a little bit more about the work that she does with Caper and any other things that you want to share before we jump into this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. And Labora, I have to first sort of pivot back to you because that's my initial reaction when I'm being interviewed is punt it back and say,
Uh-huh.
you take tap classes, yeah?
I do. I started in September of last year,
And you posted something more recently about like how you can or cannot compare yourself to others because you are and others are at a different place in the tap dancing class. Like there's someone that is doing this for 5 classes more than you, or how would you describe the experience in of itself?
I'm actually okay with the comparison piece as long as there's some knowledge base there. And for me, knowing that these individuals were 5 classes ahead of me, that was a huge relief because here I was feeling like I was behind the learning curve or I was just a really not talented. My printer always wants to do this, but I was a really not talented tap dancer, but some things it's not meant to master. Some things are just meant to try and have effort. And I feel like with knowing that it was their 5th class and they're still there with me, that kind of normalized that feeling that it's okay not to master it immediately, if at all. Just take the tap class.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it actually it dovetails well with what we're going to talk about today,
Perfect.
hopefully with some insight. Um, by way of context, I was in Wall Street for 20 years. A lot of the time that I spent on Wall Street was people telling me you're not ready.
Oh,
And that could be because they didn't know what ready looked like, what what was more out of the box thinking and out of the box behavior that they couldn't put in
no.
a little box and checklist. Um, but that carried through me for a long time. And because of that, I decided that bringing myself and my sort of my common self, my common sense self and my problem solving skills self to a workplace environment where you just sort of learn as you go through action is
Yeah.
what Caper is all about. So Caper is the business that I've created more recently. I stepped away from finance and my former professor of mine licensed his sort of do well, do good uh, plate to me. So that way I can then put that into like any institution or not-for-profit organization or, a parent or a student, so you can actually build your life skills and feel good about it. And I think that sort of takes away from feeling like you have to compete against others and you
Yeah.
more sort of about yourself. And that helps you be more authentic. So
Yeah.
everything is about that.
I like that. One of the things that really jumped out at me was when you had shared about number one, the fact of being on Wall Street for 20 plus years, but then consistently hearing that you're not ready. I have to wonder, and you can tell me, like, what what qualifies, and this can kind of go maybe even outside of your story, but what qualifies someone as being ready versus qualified, and is there a difference for that, even given the fact that you had experience, but people are still saying, "No, you're not there yet."
It's a great question, and I still don't know the answer to it. Right? Like I was chasing, trying to be the next managing director on Wall Street,
Yeah,
and um, there are certain things that you have to do to try to get to that point, which is um, self promotion. It's being part of things that people can put, like a name tag associated with. It's having a very, um, credible education background. It's a lot of things that I feel at this point is no longer needed. I
yeah,
mean, you can be homeschooled and you can be, taking a gap year, or you can get an internship when you're, a sophomore in high school, and build that experience and be much more eligible
yeah,
for that, for that next step, as opposed to like just, you know, being the classic sort of um, person who thinks that you have to tick all those boxes.
yeah. No, that's good. So, with that, do you feel like, because when you look at different jobs, right, they're posting based off of looking for certain credentials, certain qualifiers. Do you think that at some point any industry will catch up to recognizing the importance in life skills, or do you think that that's even something that's needed?
I think they will. I think,
Okay.
I think definitely, because it's not just everyone's. I feel like people are looking at the whole more profoundly than they have before.
Yeah.
They want to see how someone thinks. They want to see how someone acts. They want to see how they behave. They want to understand what they do in their community. And this is not just when you're applying for a college or for a job. It's like how you are operating in a real-time environment.
Right.
So away from the static sort of like, I graduated from here, I did this, I had my GPA, my whatever. Like it's more like, this is my journey and this is how I'm evolving. And I think people are starting to pay attention to it. And that's what, we're trying to further equip, students and young professionals to believe in themselves, is that that actually is what counts more than getting the scalar or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's so important, especially because, as an adult myself, I've been an adult for a while now. Like, I think about some of the skills that I wish I had. Like, I was actually talking to my daughter today about, income taxes, and I'm like, to be honest, I didn't really know about this until I was like married and out of the house. Like,
Yeah.
and you're like years, decades ahead of me. So it's so important to be able to have these skills. And so I'm wondering, this is kind of maybe two questions ago when you mentioned about, you know um individuals, young people coming into the workplace and they have these skills, but I'm wondering what happens if there's a mistranslation, because I like to look through things through a systems lens. And so let's say they have these life skills that they're working towards, but the system doesn't quite recognize
Totally.
how that can be a value add. And so how do they essentially navigate that, or anyone for that matter?
That's a great question. And I've been thinking a lot about that actually. I think part of it is repetition. It's like
Okay.
you just are consistent and repeat, rinse and repeat, and show.
Yeah.
You can talk the talk, but like showing up on time for every meeting at the same time when it's starting. You're never late. showing up for work when you're supposed to be at work, you know, putting it's presence matters. Whether or not
Yes.
it's on the ground or it's virtual, doesn't matter. But like being there and here and now has a lot of value, and I think that matters like in perpetuity. Like that's never going to go away.
Yeah.
I think also engaging, like, you know, participating. It's like when
Yeah.
you're in class, when you're, you know, a child and you know, in fifth grade, and you'd raise your hand and be like, okay, I'm going to ask a question. Like people want you to participate. They want to see that you're actively, you know, asking questions, engaging, and learning. And I think learners right now are doing this so on their own, like in a very, very like there's like all this stuff that's going on around them, but then they are learning in the way that they want to learn on themselves, like upon themselves. And so we need to build tools to allow them to do that. So that way they don't feel alienated, they don't feel like they're rejected, they don't feel like they're, you know, incompetent. Their capability set is exactly what it needs to be, but we can just hone in on it a little bit as long as we understand the way that they learn and how they do best in themselves.
Yeah. No, that's good. I like that because what I'm hearing from that is understanding the organization or the team or the department that you work in, but also having that self-awareness as well to know what are those values there and how can you, as you are, provide those values. If being on time, that was one of the examples that I heard. If
Yeah,
if being
yeah,
on time is one of those things, don't take that as something that is lightly like, oh, just being on time. I'm not 5 minutes late. It's okay. No, show up on time
exactly.
and
Yeah,
show up with all the skills you have.
yeah,
Um, so we
exactly.
have a comment here from Annette. It says, great discussion. Much of the discussion of you are not ready is coming from perspectives that may vary. Some people may think that you are great, others may think you are not ready. And that can be confusing. We need to know our core beliefs of our own readiness.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any, I guess, additional comments in regards to Annette's comment? Thank you for commenting, Annette.
Thanks, Annette. Um, okay, so I would go like this might be like a cheat answer, but I would go back to knowing yourself. Okay, so
Yeah,
like I've spent a lot of time over the past couple of years on me. And it might sound selfish. It might sound really like, oh, okay, so she's focused on herself, whatever. But learning about yourself and where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, where you like, you know, flounder, where you blossom, those things really matter.
yeah,
And it comes with a lot of self-assessment, self-diagnostic, you know, therapy, you know, talk to whomever, and then you can understand exactly what your credibility factor is that
yeah,
actually determines your readiness in your own way. It doesn't have to be the readiness that someone says, you know, like they you look at a job offering and they say this is what we're looking for and these are the qualifications, and a lot of people say, I'm not qualified, I'm not going to, you know, apply for the job. But you actually might be very, very ready for it because you've done something very different and you know that you have the skills to do it. So
yeah,
apply, like go for it, like put yourself out there. And I think being able to identify that with yourself is only going to allow yourself to do, you know, to do well and to then be basically within the cycle of capers, then pay it forward to put it
yeah.
back in your community. So that's sort of what that's I'm living the caper. I'm living the brand. I'm living me as I am, and I think that that's the best way forward.
Yeah, no, that's good. So as you were talking, it kind of came to mind as I know we were talking a little bit about credentials and readiness. I want to ask just for the people who may be watching and thinking, so let's say someone does not have the credential. There's a lot of different credentials out there, just depending on what that industry is. And they're still wanting to apply for a job. And it's not saying that it's necessarily required, but preferred to have that credential. And then that readiness point. How are they measuring? I don't have this credential, but I'm ready because of, I'll leave that open.
Okay, so I think that's great. I think like real life experience makes you ready. Like life is messy.
Yeah.
And it like there's no script to how you actually manage through life. Things happen and you manage through it one way or the other. And so that makes you, that makes you ready. So it can be away from like the credential or whatever, but it makes you full and like whole, and just capture those moments, capture those experiences, capture those internships or like engagements with someone like a Lapora, like just capture that stuff. And that will in turn to something that's actually, that makes you ready, and the credibility will come.
I like that. The credibility will come later. I like that a lot. And I think that's so important too. But before I talk about why I think that's important, if you're just tuning in, y'all, I'm joined by Rebecca, CEO of Caper, and we are talking about how oftentimes we can confuse credentials with readiness. And one of the things that we're currently talking about is how we can overlook where we are honestly now, and we completely dismiss honestly even the credibility that we start off with, I feel like. And I know that we will continue to build that over time, but even if we don't have that credential, are there other ways, life experiences, professional experiences that we have that can give us that initial knowledge base that we need? um, so Rebecca, how would you say that Caper kind of fills that gap, or maybe there is one particular instance where you've seen with an employee who has gone through the program, who has started off with, not feeling like they're ready, but then after they're getting those tools that they need, they are then able to go in and fulfill that role that they are applying for in the future.
Yeah, that's great. So, two things I'll say before I answer your question.
Yeah.
One is credentials is a perception.
Yeah.
Like what people are thinking about what the credential is their own perception of what that checklist looks like.
Oh,
Okay. And so
okay.
that could be something that they made up, or is a platitude for what the organization says or whatever. But it doesn't mean that you're not ready, because it comes from, like, there are three sides to every story. So your readiness doesn't necessarily have to fit into that, what do you say, credential. With experience and a network and learning and being a listener, like that to me is way more important than a Harvard degree.
Yeah.
I didn't go to Harvard. I would never get into Harvard, but I think that it actually matters to, pay attention to people, to, be each other's support system. Before getting on this podcast, Lapora, I texted a lot of my friends and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on this thing. And they're like, how do I listen to it? And I was like trying to rally all my cheerleaders to like pump me up. And they're like, just, you're fine. You'll just do what you do.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is just basically knowing in your heart, I am prepared. I prepared for this. I'm ready for it. Credentials, say what you want to say about it. It's so nondescript, but descript at the same time. But I feel like just bringing yourself is the most important part, and you will know. I feel like people will know when they're ready to apply for a job. Even if they think they're not ready, they should still do it. Um, because people will support them in putting themselves out there. And I'm a true believer of that.
Yeah. So I like that. So, and let me know if I misheard or misunderstood. What I'm hearing is that there is no measure to it. There is no, this is what ready looks like. This is
No,
how I know that I, okay.
nope, I don't think so. I think it's all very personal. I don't think I don't think there's a measuring stick for it. And I think the important piece of all this is that people go away and think, okay, let me dial in on what I'm good at, what I like. It can be tap class, it could be putting together Legos, it could be, dancing, it could whatever it is. I just
Yeah.
think that people need to allow their creative energy to come out of themselves and then explore. Like it's almost like you put yourself into like a minier version of yourself, but still adults when you're
Yeah.
thinking about these types of things. And allow yourself that. I think that creates the capacity to learn and to listen and to develop yourself in the way that you want to.
Yeah. So as we're getting ready to close, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to type in the chat or anything like that. But what I'm curious is, let's say there's someone here who, from a leadership perspective, they're holding the realms on what changes and what gets viewed as being valuable. So what are some things, and you don't have to give away all your toolboxes, but or all your tools, but if someone here is saying, well, what do I do for my organization to kind of start the change in how we view readiness, how we view credentials, what is something that they should consider or maybe even implement?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, feedback, like constant feedback, not
Yeah.
just like it's a mid year or whatever, but just like constant feedback, constant dialogue, constant coaching, constant like support, all that kind of stuff matters.
Yeah.
I think it's super important because they learn as they go. It's dynamic. It's not static. So, if someone makes a mistake of doing something, like they're not going to be, reprimanded at the end of the year because of one thing. They'll learn from that one thing because their manager or supervisor told them, I wasn't agreeing with you on this, and this is what we can do to change it. So I think communication is, I mean, it's obviously something that people say all the time, but it's key. Communication and being transparent and open and honest and concrete about what it is that this individual needs to do to enhance themselves or herself or develop a skill is very important, and that comes with time. That's not an immediate fix. And I think patience also for both the individual and the person who is evaluating the individual matters too.
Oh, that's good. You mentioned the timepiece. There was a I recently read the Fifth Discipline, and one of the quotes. Oh no, that wasn't the Fifth Discipline. That was another book. Oops. But the quotes. I don't remember the other book.
Same thing.
But one of the quotes, one of the quotes, was that if you solve any problem too quickly, number one, the problems, the goal is for the problem to solve you. Like, how can I learn this? But if you solve it too quickly, one of the things that you can be sure of is that you're going to leave that situation the same way that you entered it if you solve it too quickly. And so I like the idea of feedback, but also evaluation and that communication piece, but also that time piece. I
Time,
feel
yeah.
like we're such a, and honestly, I feel like this is on the line of credentials versus readiness. We're such a like right now, like if I get this credential, I'm ready right now. If I, if I have all of these things that say XYZ, I'm ready. But so many things require time. So many things require repetition, as you said before when we were talking about making yourself valuable in that workplace. It's that repetition. What are you doing consistently? Showing up on times to meeting consistently, understanding what the organization requires. That consistency. So that's what I really gathered from that organizational piece, is just creating opportunities from there. Is that essentially what that theme is, or is there something else there that
It's
organizations should walk away with?
it's totally the same. It's totally the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's building that muscle memory. So you're like, you know, you're developing it, and it becomes part of your own system. And then you can sort of give the signal to the system, because then the system can learn from your signals, because you've actually focused on what that signal is, and then they can actually read it. So it becomes something that actually is disruptive without the system knowing it, because you've figured it out yourself, kind of way.
Oh, that's really good. You're saying a lot of good stuff there. I hope y'all were listening. But hey, if you missed it and you're just like, wait a minute, what? Just come back and catch the replay. Because Rebecca just shared a lot of good things. And I think that this conversation was so important, because we get we can get so easily caught up in, I need this next certification and I need this next thing. And it's not to say that those are not important, but back to your story that you shared at the beginning, even in the midst of all of the things that you were accomplishing, people still questioning whether or not you were ready.
Mhm.
And so if even that people are questioning you already, like there's always going to be someone that questions it. And so it's just a matter of being true to ourselves, knowing ourselves, and being able to say, you know what, I'm ready, because there is no measure to that.
There's no measure, but Lepore, this was awesome. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yes.
I gained some insight as well by speaking with you, and I hope the listeners as well found this, purposeful and
I think they will, for sure.
exciting. So,
For sure. How
thank
can
you.
people get in contact with you if they want to reach out and they want to learn more about what you do?
They can go to the Caper website. It's www.caperassoc.com.
Okay.
And there's like if they go to the info tab on the top, then they can send an email to me, and the info tab goes right to me.
Okay. I wasn't able to pull it up, but I'm going to put it back in there later. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, no problem. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was awesome. I really
Yes.
appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. All right, y'all. So we are closing out for today. Rebecca has given you the contact information. I'm going to go back through and add it, make sure that you each can see it. If you want to reach out, please do. And remember, as always, to please stay adding value.